Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Intangibles podcast. We are with Preethi for the last time as we get into a little bit of her life and how she's used the Toastmasters skills that she's gotten through Tiger Tales and uses them now. That includes how to get and receive feedback in life. Additionally, Preethi leaves us with some advice that all of us can take into the future. So, let's dive in.
I make a device called eye gaze. Well, that's our company's name as well. But it basically allows people who have motor disability to communicate through a computer. I'm kind of the software engineer.
It seemed like, especially when I was looking at some of your posts on Facebook and things, like this is a huge cause, and it requires a lot of technical work, but also some stuff from Toastmasters as far as sharing ideas or this product getting in front of people.
Our company is very small. It's just 12, 14 people with representatives around the world. But the best part about working in a small company, at least in this one, is that I'm not just the engineer. I also have my hands on, other stuff. We used to be called LC Technologies. The moment I walked in through the door, I was like, oh my God, I have to tell people I work at LC Technologies. I mean, that sounds like 1980, which is when it started, 1980s. And it was just a, old company. And there was no pizzazz in that. So I have this burning inside that how can I make it happen that we change the company's name so people can recognize us more. We needed that as a company. Let me tell you that we do need a little bit of brush up to make our products look awesome and, kind of like Apple. But then I'm this first year's person, and how do you just go walk to our president? He's a very nice guy, though, and he's like my advisor to me. So it's not that you cannot talk to him freely, but there's still, he's still your boss. You still have to be bound by those, rules. And how do you tell him, I want to change the name of the company? Especially when the company name has his last name in it. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So one of the key things that I did was, as opposed to what I would have done before joining Toastmasters or joining my PhD, was I would have done exactly that. Walk up to him and say, look, I don't like this name. Can we do something? And that would have done exactly nothing, because he would have said, oh, no, we cannot do that because blah, 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 At this point, I cannot delineate between what things I learned from my PhD versus Toastmasters because they were so ingrained in each other.
Of course.
My approach was awesome, and I say this because I approached it the way any other, person in the industry would have done. Mm-hmm. What I did was found out all the reasons we should change the name to. I thought the entire process through from top to the bottom. So I grabbed two other people who were on the same page, and I communicated the idea to them. And I think all the stuff that I learned from Toastmasters was in that whole thing when I was communicating. How do I present it to these two, even though they're my colleagues? I could have talked to them just as friends. Look, I don't like this name, but I presented it in a very professional way to convince them of this idea and bring them on board. Those are the things I can really tell that I learned from Toastmasters, because you're trying to convince people that you're this awesome speaker, share the stuff. There's a set way of opening your speech and ending your speech so that it can have the full impact in a coherent way. Why do you want to do this? How is it going to impact us? How are you thinking of doing it? And how do you think it's going to lead us to that better path? And again, with company, you have to make sure the financial stuff is there. So I made sure every single thing was in my little presentation. As an engineer, I don't care about those things, but if I have to present my idea, I think that was an important one. And even now, I'm kind of picky about a lot of stuff in my company because of this experience I've had. I'm not the branding manager. We have a branding manager who takes care of the brand and everything. I do tell, here's my idea or here's my opinion in a very polite way, and you don't have to take it, but here's how I see it. And they take it very nicely as well, so I appreciate that. And our branding manager, he's 25, so he's just graduated and he's in that zone of learning more. So I tell him that, look, here's how I would have done it. Because I did the same thing. When you're making posters, you put a lot of text. So I told him, no, flyers need to be more pictures and awesome pictures. And so now he's doing a great job of, adding along those guidelines. And I think I got those from Toastmasters. How do you speak? How do you present something? I think I took away a lot from our meetings and our speakers and people, all the people we met. Wow. Yeah.
I think so much about, because there's so many things there about what you just said. And you think about all the people who go out there into industry. You work for a small company and you don't like the name. How many people would spend their entire careers just sitting in their office saying, this name is stupid. Like, this name is holding us back. And like when something goes wrong, it's like, well, if they would only listen to me. Then you've got a younger coworker who's still learning, and to have somebody who would just sit in their office and say, man, I don't like the way they're doing that. Between that ability, that freedom to speak up and to know how to say it and how to approach it so that you can be listened to, and also having that ability to walk into a situation and mentor someone and know how to give them that feedback of, this is great, this could use a little work. Like, knowing how to do that, how much better that makes your career. And I've seen it in my own work too. Like, how many people just get stuck inside themselves and get frustrated by things that aren't going the way as good as they could, or things that aren't going the way that they want, and just not having that freedom to speak up, or not having that ability to give feedback in a way that actually changes someone's mind. It's a superpower.
Not that people don't have ideas, people have feedback to give, and it's not that their feedback is all garbage, It's just how you put it. Like, I'm still struggling with convincing people not to use plastic, but how do you do it without, pushing them or forcing them, and then they regret talking to you ever so. So it's the right way, finding that right way, and like you said, and everybody wants to find that little niche of how do I put it. I'm still struggling to not speak extra garbage words. Let me put it that way. I have to do that. I'm better at listening, but I think I should join back Toastmasters too. If I have to say something, it takes extra words. And I always find myself giving examples, which I don't see in a lot of people who are, expert speakers. They just say one sentence and the whole message is done. And I'm like, wow, what? I just took a paragraph to say that. So that's my drawback at this point.
Yeah, it's like looking at a person, knowing exactly how you need to say it to them so you can pare it down into the shortest method possible and just say it like it needs to be said. From giving speeches, you have to look at an audience and figure that out. If not, you won't. I mean, you'll still receive claps. Like, Toastmasters is very supportive, but you won't receive that same kind of love and love notes that you see from like the expert speakers, just because they have that ability.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good one, because in your work scenario, I mean, mine is a good one because it's just like Toastmasters, a small family. But a lot of, big companies, your boss is not going to sit there and say, hey, you needed to be a little bit more polite and, not say that. They're just going to fire you, or, put a black mark in your note saying whatever wrong you did. So I think we should take advantage of small, close-knit families that we have. I do need to learn one thing. Maybe, Xavier, you can help me. So like I said, two of my colleagues are younger and 25-ish. And I feel like whenever I give feedback to them, I try not to be too picky, like find a lot of flaws at the same time. But when I give it, I feel like we don't have ranks in our office. Like, I'm not his boss, but I think he's doing it purely because, okay, I'm older and maybe I'm wiser, or he thinks that's the way. And so he kind of agrees to what I'm saying. So I'm not sure how to approach it. I don't want him to do that. I want him to just, if he's right, he's right. So I don't know. Should I just tell him, don't do it because you think I'm wiser and older? Or
I think it happens to a lot of people about my age just coming in because they haven't had that experience of getting feedback from older people that much. And if anything, it's mostly just their parents. For a lot of people, this could be like their first job too. So there's certainly a learning curve that to learn that there's people out there that actually have your best interest at heart. In Toastmasters, it's something that you learn very early, because we do mentor, you can practice and get very direct one-on-one feedback that way too. That's something that's just so valuable to help you grow, not only as a speaker, but as a person, to be able to take feedback, not as a challenge, but as something that I want to make you better.
I think I changed midway compared to like 3 years ago when I was giving them the feedback. Was I started to listen. I asked questions instead of saying, like, it's simple things, like if you're a VP Ed right now, but because I have been a VP Ed, I don't want to say, oh, Xavier, you need to cut your meetings to 55 minutes. That's not going to work. If I said that, then it's going to be very bad, because you're going to have your own reasons for, like, exactly, you had reasons. You made it 3 speeches because you have 45 people, and that's completely justified and a good reason. So I figured that maybe if I asked the question, like, hey, why do you have it 1 hour, 15 minutes? Instead of saying, have it 55 minutes or it's not going to work. I figured that if I asked out for the reasons or justifications, that would, if you're one of the person who doesn't want to say it to somebody, who's been there, who's an expert, then at least me asking questions would bring out that answer in an advertent way. And I can walk away without saying anything to you in terms of the feedback, because you were just already working. So I've changed to that aspect now. I don't ask him to do or change things. I ask him, like, why did you use red instead of blue? Was there a reason for doing that? Corey maybe did that. Walking you to figure out your own flaws, something like that. He did that, where he would ask you questions and then you figure out, okay, I did that wrong. Okay, so it makes you think you're the one who figured it out. You learn in a nice way rather than being told you were wrong. So.
And when you mention Corey, I think about his leading me through the transformation that I've been through, in the wisdom that he brings to that. Some of the most transformative things that he's led me through, it's not necessarily something he said, it's things that he didn't say.
Yeah.
Kind of getting back to what you were saying with less is more, cutting out words. And it was by not saying maybe what I was expecting to hear that it reframed the problem that I was facing. Because at a certain point, as he's leading me through something, if I'm pushing back, he knows I already know what he's going to say. So by not saying it, it makes me have it in my head, him saying it. Now, granted, that takes a couple years of friendship and closeness to get to a point where I already know what he's going to say. Learning how to receive feedback is definitely another piece that we get out of this. And learning how to give it in a way that it really does transform someone. And granted, in professional environments, you build a relationship, and maybe it's not going to be as close as a friendship, it's just a professional relationship, but still you spend years together with these folks. And I think about the people that I have built work relationships with, the ways that I've been able to help them grow. Granted, I've only been a manager now for 2 years, but those relationships are really deep, and they're deeper because of the way that I've been able to give them that feedback, or not say certain things that maybe they're expecting to hear, and the way that reframes the problem for them. I think that's the magic that is Toastmasters, is that listening and giving feedback. It brings so much power to the way that we relate to each other when we can really hear each other and then give that feedback.
Yeah, and it's just like you said, it's not a book where you have chapters on, do this, this is how you need to give feedback. It's just you watch these people, you listen to so many other people give feedback, and then you learn to pick those things.
And someone could listen to a podcast or read a book, but walking the territory of it rather than just reading the map, but actually doing it in real time, that experience of giving that feedback, that it teaches you things about how to get across this particular bridge, how to go through this particular valley of the territory, and not just kind of looking at, well, this is what it says I should do. Totally. Actually doing it in real time is all the difference.
Absolutely. And I think I had that experience with the presentations. You know, there are so many books about how to present, how to make your slides, and I followed some of them, but how do you know it worked or didn't work until you actually do it in front of an audience and they go wow or nay? And I saw that, you know, when you see other people's presentation and you pick these little things that they did and you follow the same thing, you do a good presentation, then that confirms it.
You're just giving one presentation every 6 months. It's like you do all this preparation to get ready for it, and it's like, oh, okay, how did I do? It's like, oh, pretty good. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, nobody's gonna come and say, oh, that was bad. Like for my PhD talks, it wasn't that people said, oh, that was a good talk. You know, everybody's gonna say that. You know, at least your mentors and people like that. But if people came with questions that you didn't expect them to, that was when you know people were listening to you.
To kind of get back up to that bird's eye view, we're working on this really to speak to a new generation of Toastmasters, whether it's at Tiger Tails or maybe at a few other clubs. And you said a couple things about helping folks who are trying to figure out how to write a speech or trying to figure out what's their next topic going to be. Not necessarily specific to the details of speech writing, but somebody who's just joining up in Toastmasters or thinking about joining, what advice would you have for them?
One is they have taken the very first step, which is kudos to them. And it's just the start of a new beginning. So they just have to, if they had the courage to come through the door and join Toastmasters, they had something in mind that they wanted out of it. It's just taking everything that's coming their way until they find it. Not shying away from what you have entered into just because of a few hurdles here and there. I think that's the key. It's a little demoralizing at the beginning, yes, because you're comparing yourself with other newbies. Keep going with an open mind, and then you will eventually just excel so much that nobody can say anything that demoralizes you anymore.
Your goal was to come in to become a better speaker, presenter, more confident leader. So to not forget that mission that you had when the going gets tough. You're giving your first speech and it didn't go over as well as you thought, or like you do a role and mess up. A great thing about being a member, being a speaker with great speakers around you is that you're only going to get better because some of that stuff is going to come on to you, whether it's being able to tell jokes better or just stand more confidently without ego swagger.
One of the first things as basic humans we do is we don't look at, wow, look at all these awesome speakers, I'm going to learn so much. The first thing that comes to our mind is, oh my God, they're so good and I'm so bad. Or look, this person is the same age, the same class as me, and he's better and he's getting all the, appreciation and I'm not. So you start always thinking negative. And I think, as the welcoming group, you guys do that awesomely. You just make them feel welcome, even though you're telling them certain things that they might be doing incorrectly. It's just how you tell it.
Preethi, I just want to thank you so much for everything that you've done for Tiger Tails. It's your attention to detail and your great spirit that has helped set what we are today. You deepen those grooves that we got to move through and just slowly get better and better. Also, thank you for your wise words here to help remind us of what those roots even are. Tune in for our next series with the one and only Rob McCarthy. See you next time.
I can't wait to get you at a meeting and get you speaking because I think that would be really cool.
Just give me a couple of months.
A couple of months.
I told you, right? Speaking is not the issue for me. It's getting the speech. So if you have a speech ready, I can do it.
I'll write one up for you.